right, hi everybody. So today is part 6, and as I promised, we are going to talk about nutrition and nutritional deficiencies. So this is a big one, and this is a big one that is bigger than what we ever think it's going to be. You know, where during the whole process, which is I talked about in an earlier video about what you have to go through before the surgery as part of the therapy and meeting with the nutritionist and all that stuff. You know, you go, you know, they let you know, this is what you're going to have to do after the surgery. You're going to have to, take supplements, and you're going to have to supplement for the nutrients that you're not getting. And this is why. So when you have, at least with gastric bypass, with that type of weight loss surgery, what happens is your stomach is made into a really small pouch, right? And then, hence the word bypass, your small intestine is unattached and then reattached. So, when food passes through, it's only going through, say, for lack of better term, like this much of my intestines, then this much of my intestines. So, as I may not be consuming the same amount of calories as somebody else may be consuming by eating the same thing, I'm also not consuming the same amount of nutrients. And, this was something interesting that I learned too, was that, in certain parts of your stomach, the certain parts of your stomach is where that pulls the nutrients from the food, so, with having a big part of your stomach gone, you're not able to pull those nutrients from the food, and the biggest deficiencies that, they find, and, I had them all, was, B12, calcium, magnesium, iron is huge, and I will go into that with you guys too. That was a big issue for me. Vitamin D, vitamin B12, I think I already said that, and zinc. And, a lot of the side effects from that stuff is, vitamin B12 is for your, that feeds your central nervous system. So, you start having issues with your central nervous system, then, you've got some bigger problems. And, one of the things that can be caused by that is peripheral neuropathy. And what that is that ends up being a nerve disease, nerve damage, it mainly comes in your hands and your feet. So that can be a little bit scary. Iron deficiency, that was something that I had an issue with. And I had an issue with iron before I even had my gastric bypass. And, the iron, that really, it makes you lethargic. And, that's not enough oxygen, getting through your blood. So having an iron deficiency, there's things like pica, like chewing ice. I chewed ice like a crazy psycho person. If we were going to get an iced coffee, I would get an iced coffee, and then I would get a whole extra cup of ice, and that does a lot of damage to your teeth too. So you can see how these things can kind of roll over and, cause issues. Calcium, if your body needs a lot of calcium if you're not pulling it from the food that you're eating. And, it's tough too with calcium because, where you're going to pull calcium from a lot is from dairy products. There are a lot of vegetables that you can also pull calcium from, but after surgery, your body, it takes a long time to be able to build up to eat in certain foods. And beef and dairy are two of the, the hardest things to digest. So it literally took me a year till I could eat beef or dairy again. So, I wasn't able to get those, really high sources of calcium from the dairy that I should have been eating, so that caused that. So what happens is, the doctor puts you on supplements. And that's when, I was probably on 10 to 12 supplements a day, and I was like clockwork taking them. I did not forget. I had my pill box, or I had them in a basket on my counter. I did not forget. My issue was that, and I did that for like over 7 years. I did that. But my issue was that I was still deficient in those areas. And that was with a really clean, healthy diet. I was still deficient. And with that, I was failing the, especially with my iron, I was lethargic, and I was, just kind of struggling. You could see the bags under my eyes, and but I was still going to the gym and working out. And I would go to the doctors, and she'd be like, "I don't even know where you're getting the energy to work out because your iron is like you should be laying down on the floor right now." But I wasn't going to let that stop me either. You just do what you do, and you get used to feeling the way you're feeling, and you just think that that's okay. It just becomes okay for you, and it's really not. The issue with pills and supplements is that, your body has to work to break those pills and supplements down. And, more times than not, your body doesn't break that whole entire pill down. So a lot of times you're not getting the full milligrams of that pill. And it also depends, it was kind of frustrating because, for me, this is all for me. This is for nobody else. I'm not telling you, I'm not recommending anything for anybody to do. You have to talk to your doctor about everything. But, for with the supplements that I was taking, there were some supplements that you couldn't take with other supplements because they wouldn't break down the way they were supposed to and all that. So it was like it was just a game, and it was a pain in the butt game, to be honest with you. So, to be taking all those supplements, to be having a clean diet, to be, working really hard and then still be deficient, it was a little bit frustrating. So, that went on for like 7 years. And, and that is probably, because I was so diligent, with taking my vitamins and my supplements and with what I was putting in my body and following what I was supposed to be following after surgery, as far as keeping up your protein, as far as, keeping yourself hydrated, like all that stuff, that's a good reason why I haven't had any issues, and, but just because you don't have, that doesn't mean that things can't come up later on. When you have such a abrasive surgery like that, and that, your insides are literally altered, you really become in tune with your body. You can really tell when something's off. I mean, in general, you can anyways, but it's almost like you become super sensitive to that kind of stuff. And I actually had an incident 2 weeks ago where I had a partial blockage in my, where my intestine and my bowel meet. And I mean, it was on my 11-year anniversary. It was like the day after my 11-year anniversary. And I was like, what? I've never had an issue before. But it was a piece of meat that apparently I didn't chew small enough. And, my insides don't work the same as, the normal person. And the part in my intestine and bowel where that would expand and contract in a normal person, mine doesn't, because that's where they were reattached. So it's a really thin area anyway. So when a piece of food gets lodged in there, luckily it did end up unlodging itself, and everything ended up being okay. It was just a process of almost 2 weeks for me to heal from it. It causes inflammation, it causes irritation. Then I was on, a liquid diet for, over a week, and, just really, now I really, really have to just chew things. And, what's kind of cool about that is what I'm realizing is when we really chew our food, like, it tastes so good. Food is so good. So that's been a great learning experience for me. So, just really paying attention to, what you're doing and what you're putting in your body. And, when they gave me those guidelines of, what I needed to take for my supplementation, there was reasons behind that, and you can really get in a lot of trouble if you don't stay up with that. And, like I said, things can creep up later. Things eventually catch up and all that. So what I did was I ended up finding, by the grace of God, I ended up finding something that worked for me as far as my supplementation and my deficiencies. Like I said, I was taking my iron pills, I was eating the food I was supposed to be eating, but yet I was still having to go to the hospital for iron infusions, and when you have to sit in the hospital, every couple of weeks for like 2 hours, it's just a pain in the butt. So, so that happened. So then I was actually looking for a plain protein shake, and that was clean, and I, found one. It was called About 5. And there was only 5 ingredients in it, which was great. And it was giving me the protein, that I needed, but it kind of tasted like blah. And then once I, started my journey with personal coaching, I ended up coming, one of the things that I was introduced to at that point was my Shakeology. And I'm telling you this because it worked for me. I'm not telling you this because this is something that you should do. And I'm not telling you this instead, to do this instead of doing something else. I'm just telling you what worked for me. And, if you know me, then you know that I'm passionate about this, and this is why I'm passionate about it. So for 7 years, I was, faithful with taking my pills, and, it didn't take care of all my deficiencies, but I'm sure had I not been taking them, I would have felt a lot worse than I did, So, I'm not nixing the supplements by any means at all, and you need to take them because they're necessary. So, when there was a lot of hype around, Shakeology and around, it has everything in it and it's the best thing ever and, all this stuff. So I'm like, well, I have something that I can test it out with because I have all these deficiencies, and all of these deficiencies I saw, reviews how Shakeology helped them. So I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm not going to die literally from not taking my supplements for a couple months. So let me just see what happens. So I stopped taking all of my supplements. And it was like really kind of a cool break because it's a lot to try to, master that. But it's your health, so you have to do what you have to do for your health. So I stopped taking them altogether because I wanted to see if it made a difference. And then I started drinking, my Shakeology every day. And, with the dense nutrition that it has, all the probiotics, prebiotics, minerals, nutrients, everything that had, and my body didn't have to do anything to break it down. It literally absorbed like a sponge. My body just absorbed all of those nutrients like a sponge. And the next time I went for my my physical about 6 months later, and all of my levels were perfect. And the doctor was like, I don't know, good job taking your supplements, whatever. I'm like, well, I'm really not. And she was like, well, whatever you're doing, everything's working out. So that was the first time, especially with my iron, that was the very first time since my son Chase was born. He's 25. So I've been drinking Shakeology for 3 years now. So that was the first time in 22 years that I had a normal iron reading. So that's where my passion comes from for that. And, if I hear if somebody comes to me and they're like, I have a deficiency in iron, I'm like, you know what, try this for a month, try this for a couple months and see if it works for you. But like I said, this is not me telling you to do this instead of your vitamins or your supplements. I would never do that. I'm just telling you what worked for me. This was easier for me. And not only was it my supplements, but it was my breakfast. And breakfast was a struggle for me to eat. Breakfast was never a big thing for me. So, that was really, it was kind of like killing two birds with one stone. So that's why I will never stop drinking it. It's literally the best thing that has really helped my body thrive. And it's enabled my body to get what it needs due to the, my insides being altered. So it's worked for me, and, that's where I'm getting all my nutrients and vitamins and supplementation. And I did have to tell my my bariatric surgeon a couple weeks ago when I went in. She goes, so you still taking your vitamins? I'm like, no. So I had given her the full gist of what was going on. She was like, oh, okay, interesting. So I see her in a couple weeks. So she wants to know more about that, which I thought was kind of cool. So that's part of sharing my story. You can't, don't ever just assume that, things are going to go the way they're supposed to go. Don't assume that your body is going to adjust to things the way it's going to adjust. Don't assume that your body is going to get what it needs just because you're putting something in it. Just be aware, and, always, with you got to check with your doctors, but, always just make sure that you're, don't put anything foreign in your body. Don't put, the best thing you can do for yourself is, dense nutrition. There's lots of great vegetables out there, and, and fruit, and, you got to keep yourself on every food group, because there's food groups for a reason. So, your body needs every single one of those. So anyways, that's my deal on the nutritional deficiencies. And, I have another episode, another part coming up that I will deal with, the actual food, and telling you how much I could eat, and, how much I ate before, and how much I eat now, and all that fun stuff. So I hope you guys found this, I hope you got something out of it, and thank you for letting me share again, and you guys have been amazing by supporting me on this journey. So everyone, have a great day, and I will see you next time. Peace out.